The British monarchy. A little over a year ago, King Charles, the King of the United Kingdom, was crowned. There are currently around 29 countries in the world that still have monarchies. The question that now comes to mind is the British monarchy a loss of money or an important impact on British society? To answer that question, we have to look at the history of the monarchy, the political system in the United Kingdom, and some background information. But what does monarchy even mean? A monarchy is a form of government with the monarch at the head. In a monarchy, the position of the monarch is legitimized through heritage, meaning that it's typically inherited within a royal family. In the case of the British monarchy, it operates as a constitutional monarchy. This means that while the monarch holds a ceremonial position of significant historical and cultural importance, their influence is restricted by constitutions and laws that prevent any abuse of power. In the United Kingdom, the monarch's role is always coordinated with the state administration, the court, and the government. This ensures that the monarch acts within the legal framework and in concert with elected officials and other branches of government. The Constitution and accompanying legal structures ensure that the monarch's powers are balanced and exercised in a way that supports democratic principles and governance.
I will tell you about the history of the English royal family. However, it's really complex, which is why I will shorten it. Nevertheless, I don't want to leave out anyone to make the scope of the regions clear, but I left out a few kings anyways. William the Conqueror is considered the first English monarch. In 1066, he conquered England during the Norman invasion and became king after the Battle of Hastings. He had plenty of kids, but not all of them are relevant. I will only talk about two, William and Henry. After the king died, his son William II became king. One time the brothers went hunting as a birthday activity, and William II died by accident, which made Henry I the next king. He had at least 26 children, of which only two were 100% legit, William and Empress Matilda. For now, it's an advantage for the eldest son to get the crown, but William died young, and Henry I declared his daughter to rule next, and swore his knights to honor Empress Matilda. The day he died, Empress Matilda was in France, and many ignored their swore. In her absence, her cousin Stephen used bigger army diplomacy to get coronated first. Bigger army diplomacy is a strategy where someone uses his military superiority to achieve his goals. Empress Matilda returned and started a decades-long civil war, fighting for the throne. She ruled part of the island, but never had an official coronation. After his death, his nephew, Henry II, became king. And he was the opinion that the circumstances thus far were a combination of conquest, assassination, usurpation, and attritional war, and he decided that the idea of waiting the current king to die for sorting out the next one didn't work really well. So he changed the system and crowned his son Henry the Young as co-king with him. The rule of two is according to the saying, one is none, two is one. The reign of Henry the Young resulted in another civil war. And the next 200 years, the kingdom was ruled by Richard Lionheart, King John, Edward I, Edward II, Edward III, Richard II, Henry IV, and Henry V. This time period included the typical royal drama and the disputes about the throne. Although it sounds really messy, the actual confusion starts in the year 1455 with the War of Roses, which is a series of civil wars fought over the control of the English throne. The series ended in 1487, but in this time period, Henry VIII formalized the rules of inheritance. Oldest by first, and girls only if there aren't any boys, and the parliament approved his rules. He also split the churches, which will be important later on. His son, Edward VI, decided that his father's rules are dumb and he also didn't like his sisters, which is why he declared his cousin, Lady Jane Grey, to be the next monarch. She became queen for 9 days until Mary I beheaded her. Mary then became the first truly queen. Having no children, she passed the crown to Elizabeth I, who became the second queen in a row to also not have children. After her death, it would be the actual time for Lady Jane Grey to get the crown, but because she's already dead, there aren't any real options left. At this time, England admits that Scotland exists, who had their own royal system. In the past, there were royal family members who married into the Scottish royal family line, bringing in English legitimacy points from the point of view of the English Parliament. The Parliament decided to borrow Scotland's king, James, who then became king of 2 countries with 2 numbers in his name. He was James VI in Scotland and James I in England. Someday, his son Charles I became king, until Cromwell came. Cromwell didn't like kings and beheaded Charles I. He didn't want rights no longer and made himself the Lord Protector. Although he wasn't a king, he was in charge. He passed his position down to his son, but the Cromwells didn't last long. Charles II re-established the monarchy. Next in line was his brother James II, who was Catholic. And we remember Henry split the church, and Catholics had terrible approval ratings. Conventionally, he had Protestant daughters. One of them married to a Dutch prince, who was the grandson of Charles I. As a legit couple, they ruled as co-monarchs, but hadn't children, so the crown went to Queen Anne, who was pregnant 17 times but didn't give birth. Finding themselves in a no royals no longer situation, the parliament decided it was really time to sort out the rules of inheritance to avoid everyone in the family line fighting over the crown. The parliament defined Sophia of Hanover to be the new starting point for all claims to the crown, and the messy time ended here. After her, there were George I, the second, the third, and the fourth, then William, and then Queen Victoria. She started her reign in 1837 and made it to 1901. In this long time period, the state is known for its medical technology. After her, there were Edward VII, George V, and Edward VIII. Edward VIII committed a scandal by marrying a divorced American commoner. Divorces were a real problem and were not compatible with the church in the 1930s. His brother, George VI, didn't really want to be king, but had no option. He had to oversee World War II and the breakup of the British Empire. After his death, there was Elizabeth II. She became queen in 1952 at the age of 25. In September 2015, she became the longest reigning queen in world history. The crown then continued to Charles III, who was in fact her son. This was the royal family tree and the most important facts from 1066 to the present day. You can clearly see that it took some time to file on the inheritance rules. The members of the British royal family fought for it, which costed many lives in civil wars. Nowadays, the inheritance is clear and you know who is in line to be the next king or queen. If Charles dies, his son, another George, would get the crown.
The political system of the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom operates under a unique political system that blends historical tradition with modern demographical principles. As a constitutional monarchy and parliamentary democracy, the UK's system of governance ensures a balance of ceremonial heritage and functional political structures. At the core of the UK's political system is a constitutional monarchy. The monarch, currently King Charles III, serves as the head of state. While the monarch's role is largely symbolic and ceremonial, it holds significant historical and cultural importance. The monarch's powers are restricted by the constitution and laws, ensuring they do not interfere with the democratic process. The UK Parliament is at the heart of country's legislative process. It comprises two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The House of Commons is the lower house, consisting of members of parliament who are elected by the public in general elections held every 5 years. The political party or coalition of parties that secures the majority of seats in the House of Commons forms the government. The leader of this majority party becomes the Prime Minister, who acts as the head of government. In contrast, the House of Lords, the upper house, is made up of appointed members, including life peers, bishops, and hereditary peers. The House of Lords plays a critical role in reviewing legislation proposed by the House of Commons. It can suggest amendments and revisions, acting as a check on the decisions made by elected officials, although it cannot ultimately block legislation indefinitely. The government, led by the Prime Minister, is responsible for running the country and implementing laws. The Prime Minister appoints members of the government, including senior ministers who head various government departments. These senior ministers form the cabinet, which is instrumental in formulating policies and overseeing their implementations. The cabinet works closely with the Prime Minister to coordinate government action. An independent judiciary is a cornerstone of the UK's political system. The judiciary interprets and applies the law, ensuring justice and upholding the rule of law. It operates independently of the government and parliament, which safeguards against any undue influence and maintains the integrity of the legal system. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the UK, dealing with the most significant legal issues and ensuring consistent interpretation of the law across the country. Local government in the UK operates through a system of devolution and local authorities. Devolved administrations in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland have their own parliaments or assemblies with varying degrees in legislative power, allowing for tailored governance that reflects regional needs and priorities. In England, local government is organized into counties, districts, and unitary authorities, each responsible for delivering essential services such as education, transport, and housing. With this insight into the political system, the question arises as to what the duties of the royal family actually are, since they appear to have only limited power.
Their main duties include receiving dignitaries in the United Kingdom and attending state and ceremonial events abroad. However, the monarchs are supposed to stay out of politics, and for certain laws they must give their written consent despite their withdrawal from politics, even if this could be waived. This raises the question of why the monarchy still has such a high value for British society if it's actually just a waste of money. After all, British society financed the English royal family through the taxes collected via the so-called sovereign grant. These taxes amount to £86 million or around 102 million euros. With their own income from business or land property, the monarchs only earn 1/4 of the money they collect in taxes. Added to this are the high costs that arise when there's a change of office. Such as last year, after the death of Queen Elizabeth, the new King Charles is crowned, and the cost of this equivalent to the money the companies has to pay in taxes in a year. Then there are costs for the new face of the currency, because the face of Charles has to be on the pound. Apart from the costs, it's a lot of extra work that doesn't need to be done, right?
Yes, it is right that the British monarchy is in parts funded by the sovereign grant. They still do have other sources of income, such as private inheritance. For example, Prince William and Prince Harry inherited money from their mother, Princess Diana, and from their great-grandmother. The privy purse is also a source of income as well. This income comes from the Duchy of Lancaster, a private estate of land, property, and assets held in trust for the reigning monarch, also from the Duchy of Cornwall. They also got personal wealth and investments, including personal property. For instance, Queen Elizabeth II had a personal portfolio of investments, private estates such as Balmoral Castle in Scotland and Sandringham House in Norfolk, and other assets. There's also an additional income through charitable activities. While not a direct source of personal income, many royal family members are patrons of numerous charities and organizations. Their involvement often helps these organizations raise funds and gain public attention. Generally, the members of the royal family are really involved in a vast array of charitable activities and serve as patrons to numerous organizations. This shows that the royal family not only is paid through the sovereign grant, but also contributes to the economy, particularly even through tourism. The royal family attracts millions of visitors each year to iconic sites like Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and the Tower of London. These attractions generate substantial revenue not just from entrance fees but also from spending on hotels, restaurants, and other services. It is estimated that the monarchy contributes hundreds of millions of pounds annually to the UK economy through tourism alone. This economic impact helps the British people to justify the public expenditure on the royal family. Regarding the printing of new banknotes upon the accession of the new monarch, it is not as severe as it may seem. The Bank of England has stated that the banknotes featuring the image of the king are intended to replace worn or damaged pound notes featuring the queen. Therefore, the old notes remain valid and only a limited number of new notes will be printed. The limited production was agreed upon with the royal household. King Charles aims to minimize harmful environment impacts by producing a restricted quantity.
Is there a possibility that the British monarchy will once again strive for more power? Could the monarchy become a threat to other countries? After all, Britain's exit from the European Union has already proved to be a disadvantage for various countries. If there is a possibility that the monarchy will regain more power, it could also endanger democracy in other countries. This would be particularly critical for the younger generation, as they already have an aversion to the monarchy in England. Around 60% of young people are against a continued monarchy in its current form. This is because the monarchy represents the old traditions, while progress lies in the future of England. Even the grandson of King Charles, Prince Harry, has decided to keep his distance from his family and step down from royal duties, because this would show too little diversity with regret to his wife Meghan and his son. Do you think King Charles wants to change something in terms of power relations, or is he focusing on gaining new supporters?
Well, the possibility of the British monarchy seeking more power is unlikely in the current political landscape. Any attempt by the monarchy to increase its influence would likely face strong opposition from both the government and the public, who value the principles of democracy and the rule of law. However, even without seeking more power, the monarchy could still pose certain challenges, particularly in terms of its impact on other countries. The monarchy's role in diplomacy and its global image could potentially affect international relations. It's important to note that the British monarchy typically operates within established diplomatic protocols and does not engage in unilateral actions that could jeopardize international stability. England's exit from the EU, commonly known as Brexit, has indeed had a ramification for various countries, but it's primarily a decision made by the British government rather than the monarchy. While Brexit has caused economic and political disruptions, attributing these solely to the monarchy would be inaccurate. As for the monarchy's impact on democracy, the likelihood of it posing a significant threat to democratic principles in other countries is minimal. Democratic systems are built on checks and balances, and the British monarchy's powers are constrained by law and tradition. Moreover, the majority of younger generations in the UK express skepticism or opposition to the monarchy, suggesting that democratic values are deeply ingrained in society. The British people think that the British monarchy is deeply embedded in the cultural and historical fabric of the nation. It symbolizes continuity, tradition, and a shared national identity that spans centuries. Many British people feel a strong connection to their heritage through the monarchy, which serves as a living link to the past. Events such as royal weddings, jubilees, and other ceremonies are celebrated nationwide and often generate a sense of unity and pride among the populace. The royal family embodies the historical narrative of the United Kingdom, providing a sense of stability and continuity that is especially valued during times of change or uncertainty. It is also believed that the royal family brings a lot of advantages, as the monarchy also plays a vital ceremonial and diplomatic role. The queen or king hosts state visits, participates in national celebrations, and represents the UK at home and abroad. These activities help maintain and strengthen diplomatic relationships with other countries. The non-partisan nature of the monarchy allows it to act as a neutral figurehead, fostering goodwill and promoting British interests without the political connections that elected officials might carry. This diplomatic function enhances the UK's global standing and facilitates international relations. In conclusion, the British monarchy, despite its cost, continues to hold significant value for British people through its cultural and historical significance, economic contributions, charitable work, and diplomatic roles. It embodies the nation's heritage, supports its economy, aids in diplomacy, and plays a crucial constitutional role. These factors collectively justify the expenditure on the monarchy for the British and highlight its enduring importance in the United Kingdom. Even though they might not be a waste of money, they aren't really a necessity. As seen in other countries, it works pretty well without a monarchy. As long as the Britons see the monarchy as an integral and beneficial institution that enriches British society in numerous ways, they will most likely keep it alive.